and we're up on our site. We can start.
All righty. Happy New Year and good evening, everyone. Hope everyone enjoyed their holiday season with their families and loved ones. I want to thank all of our council members, chairpersons, and staff members who are joining us on this Zoom. Really pray everybody was safe and is doing well as we start off the year. And of course, on behalf of the borough, I want to congratulate our new chairperson for Community Board 2, Danielle Brecker. Welcome, Danielle. We look forward to your hard work and leadership that you will provide to the Sunnyside, Woodside, Long Island City community. And tonight, we're going to hop straight into it and have our presenters present. Tonight, we are pleased to be joined by Tori Caso, hope I pronounced that right, who is the director of Carbon Free and Healthy School Campaign. Tori has been a director for the campaign for a year now and has a background in public policy and electoral campaigns and local government. The Carbon Free and Healthy Schools campaign is led by a coalition of labor unions, including District Council 37, SEIU Local 32 BJ, Painters and Allied Trades, Council of School Supervisors, and the administrators, and the United Federation of Teachers. Working together with these unions, the campaign aims to urge federal and local lawmakers to retrofit New York City public schools for energy efficiencies. We will now receive a presentation from Tori and also hear from a few Queens residents who represent some of these unions. The floor is yours, Terry, and I can't think of a more important time to continue to have conversations around addressing climate change in every fashion we can, especially in light of some of the flooding we saw in the Rockaways and Howard Beach and Hamilton Beach. So continuing to, in every way, whether it's electric vehicle charging stations, whether it's composting, whether it's carbon-free initiatives within our schools, these are the things we need to do to not only fight climate change from a gray infrastructure standpoint, but certainly from a green standpoint as well. So I want to welcome you and thank you for the work that you've been doing on this campaign. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. And thank you, everyone, the borough president and all of the board members for allowing us to take this time to present to you. So I think what I'm going to do is going to give a very quick sort of overview and background on the campaign itself. And then we have some really great members of our coalition who have taken time out of their evening to join us tonight. Introduce them, let them say a little bit about why they support the campaign and their interest in it. And then I can go into some more detailed numbers and Queens specific information on the schools, and then we can answer any questions. So let me just share my screen. And then I will start the presentation. As long as it loads, there we go. Okay, so carbon-free and healthy schools. So Climate Jobs New York is a coalition of unions representing 2.6 million workers in New York. And its mission is to advocate for a clean energy economy at the scale climate science demands, creating good union jobs and supporting more equitable communities and a more resilient New York. As the borough president went through, the Carbon Free and Healthy Schools Coalition is comprised of a steering committee that on it has the New York City Building Trades, the Central Labor Council, the UFT, the CSA, DC 37, and 32 BJ, all of whom have members within the schools, and then obviously have children who go to the schools and are living in our communities. Similar coalitions have been formed in states throughout the country, and this schools campaign in different iterations is in effect in a number of those states, including Connecticut, Rhode Island, and Illinois. Notably, so we're seeing that this is a trend throughout the country, but notably the city of Boston announced last year a $2 billion Green New Deal investment for Boston public schools. Carbon Free and Healthy Schools is a campaign. I won't read through all of this, but we can share the slides afterwards if you want to get a little bit more deeper, but is a campaign centered on environmental and social justice and equity. And it goes beyond just reducing emissions and improving air quality for our communities. It aims to provide the young people of New York City with opportunities, especially those residing in neighborhoods that have been historically overlooked and under-resourced, providing them world-class access to world-class training programs like apprenticeships and pre-apprenticeships that provide direct entry into unions and can help build life of transferable skills and good union careers that will also have an impact on climate change. And currently in this moment, we have an unprecedented opportunity to take advantage of significant federal and state funding sources, especially with the passage of the Federal Inflation Reduction Act. And we believe that it is time to invest in New York City schools right now. Most of the schools were built in the beginning of the last century, and many of the buildings we see are in need of just basic repairs and upgrades, from antiquated heating and air conditioning systems and deteriorating rooftops to outdated electrical grids. And also, climate change is here to stay, and we are seeing more extreme weather events, flooding, wind that can cause continuous damage as well. So by investing in schools at full implementation, and what we're calling for in the full scope of the campaign is for every New York City school building to have an energy efficiency audit, have deep retrofits conducted, have solar installation and other renewable energies installed as well and the last step of the plan includes battery storage, which would be important for resiliency throughout the city. And by doing so, we can create 45,000 good union jobs in New York City communities, make schools healthier and safer for our students, teachers, and staff, take on climate change at the scale that it's demanding, and help the city meet its emissions reductions goals, decreasing emissions by 75,000 tons annually, or the equivalent of taking 154,000 cars off the road, and saving $275 million per year in energy costs, which is the second highest cost for the DOE, a trend that we see nationally as well. At this moment, with the passage of the Inflation Reduction Act, Carbon-Free and Healthy Schools is seeking a commitment from the city to accelerate solar installation on New York City school buildings to the amount of 150 schools per year, as well as conducting energy efficiency retrofits with the completion of all schools by 2030. And doing all of this work, conducting it all under a project labor agreement, which ensures opportunities for and increasing access to world-class pre-apprenticeship direct entry programs and apprenticeships for New Yorkers, as previously mentioned. Little bit of history. In the latter part of 2022, at the request of the former first deputy mayor, Climate Jobs shared with the mayor's administration and the SCA a list of 100 schools across all 5 boroughs to prioritize for solar installation and retrofits. All of these schools are located in environmental justice areas. 71 of the schools were determined by DCAS to be solar ready. The additional 29 are schools that would require roofing replacement and other infrastructure upgrades in order to become solar ready. And it is important to note that this list is simply a recommendation of where to start. We believe in prioritizing environmental justice communities. And the goal of the campaign is to ultimately have a multi-year plan that will allow for the completion of all of this work on every single building that needs retrofits and upgrades. So I am going to pause the presentation and we can get back to it. But I wanted to give our members a chance to introduce themselves. If they can unmute, we will start with Jamal Johnson, who is a District 30 steward with 32 BJ in Queens, if he is on. I don't know if he's still on. Jamal, if you're scrolling through, he may have had to have hopped off because he was actually doing this on his break at work.
I don't know if Michael wants to say, or any members from 32 BJ.
Yeah, well, we can. So Michael Stevenson, if you want to go, I think Jamal had to hop off because he was at work.
Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Michael Stevenson. I'm in the School Division with 32 BJ. And I think the solar panel will be a very good thing for the schools. It'll cut down on air pollution and it'll be good for the environment. And it'll mostly save on electric bill for the schools too.
Great. And see Nicole from UFT. Do you want to take a chance?
Hi, how are you? I'm excited to be here. My name is Nicole Keister. I'm an English teacher and chapter leader at IS5. It's my 18th year teaching at IS5, and I love our community. I'm very lucky to be a part of it. I feel really passionate about this. I think it's a really opportune time for us to be involved. I think we'd be ahead of the curve, which would be great for my students, my colleagues, my entire school community. Just currently right now, we were missing a heating part. So it's been like particularly hot in a lot of our building. There's several rooms right now where you can't really hear the students speaking. And these are just constant problems and they'll get fixed and we'll get the pieces and the parts that we're waiting for, but they're Band-Aids to a bigger issue. So it would just be really amazing if we could, get this off the ground, be really, really great for the school to actually make these changes that will really impact our students in big ways going forward and in the future. I'm an English teacher, so I get to read really great texts with my kids. We get to read articles, and one of the things that I'm always talking to them about is being global citizens and what that means. And this would be amazing because we get to see something really tangible happen in the school building, and they get to see what that really means for them, and they get to see us advocating, and then it would just be an amazing thing for them to be a part of. We would all reap the benefits. In addition, the job market is changing, and I know you mentioned that in the presentation, but if this continues to grow, like you said, by 2030, these are really, really great opportunities for our kids to have. And then, as we know, with COVID, there was all these conversations about HVAC and different air purifiers and things like that. And for our schools to be safer for my students, for my colleagues, for the entire community, that would be amazing as well. And I just think that, like I said, this would be amazing for us just to be doing our part. And I'd love to show my students that it's who we are, who we strive to be. And I think it's an amazing thing for the entire school community, the entire community of Queens, and then even to be making an impact globally, and to be able to show my students that, it's amazing. So big supporter. Thank you for letting me share.
Thank you, Nicole. And then Nishanta. Who is,
yes, hi. Hi, good evening, everyone. Thanks for having me. I'm honored to be on the call, one as a lifelong resident of Queens, Southeast Queens, and also to represent my organization, CSA.
We lost her. All right, we'll give her a minute to, oh, Dave.
Can you hear me?
Oh, you're breaking up a little bit. Okay, maybe she'll come back in. We'll turn it back to you, Tori.
Okay, great. We will, don't think Jamal hopped back on. He was supposed to be, but at the end, if they are back on, we will have them just give a couple of words. All right, let me hop back into the presentation and give some more specific numbers. Okay. Slideshow. So we will start with just sort of an example of one of the schools we've recommended in Queens, PS 183. Just give you an idea of some of the needs and then also some of the costs for the specific school. So the estimated solar capacity is 19.2 kilowatts. HVAC costs would be about 840,000. Electrical upgrades would be just under 700,000. Windows, 500,000. Solar installation would be 67,000. And then LED retrofits would be 147,000 for a total estimated cost of about 2.2 million. Well, 2.4, between 2.2 and 2.4. As you can see, steam boiler needs replacement. It was built in 61 and is beyond useful life. 70 windows need to be replaced and the electrical system needs replacement. So across the 5 boroughs, these are the total estimated costs for everything for solar installation and the retrofits. It would be just south of $330 million. That's a fun pie chart with all of the percentages. As you can see, so rooftop solar would be 12.8% of the costs, which is pretty good, I would say, in the grand scheme of things. So in Queens, we are recommending 20 schools, as I mentioned, all in environmental justice areas. The total estimated cost for those 20 schools would be $43,383,998. Cost of solar is $6.7 million, and then the additional upgrades are there as well. I have the list of all of the schools. I won't read them all out, but what I will say is the ones that I've highlighted. So where it says roof project, these are schools that, when we shared this list with the SCA, they went through it and identified schools where they are either had a roof project in construction or in design. And as you can see, of the 20 schools, there are 3 schools that at the time, this was in the summer, either had a roof project in construction or in design. So that would go towards the first step towards making them able to have solar installation. So I've mentioned the Inflation Reduction Act a couple of times. In it, it has a direct pay provision for tax credits for municipalities and nonprofits, which previously was not afforded to cities or municipalities. Overall, with all of the schools, the retrofits we are estimating would cost $3.3 billion, and that was the solar installation, and then the cost of retrofitting the schools would be an additional $5.15 billion. And we estimate that 40% of the total solar installation would be could be funded through the direct pay provision. And then 1.03 billion of the retrofitting costs, or 20%, would be through the Inflation Reduction Act. So that is a significant source of money that we have previously not had access to. So it is very exciting time to be considering doing solar installation and energy efficiency retrofits. And the energy cost savings over a period of 30 years is an estimated 8.25 billion. So if you can do that math, it's about equal. Just to give an example of what solar installation alone on 150 school buildings would be, the total project cost would be 45.3 million. Tax credits that we would receive would be 19.2 million. You'd have a couple of other incentives and rebates. But then the annual solar revenue would be 2.9 million, and the annual loan payments would be 2.05 million. So you see that pretty much you'd be outpacing the cost saving, or you'd be outpacing your loan payments with the cost savings pretty much immediately. And then the payback period for that would be 4 years. And the 30-year savings would be $44.1 million. And that is with just 150 schools doing solar installation alone, not including retrofitting or other upgrades. And wanted to touch on workforce development because it is such a, we do view this as a green jobs program as well. And wanted to just go through the Apprenticeship Readiness Collective, which is a collective of pre-apprenticeship union pathways under the building trades. C-Skills, which already has a partnership with the DOE is inside of high schools, provides training and direct entry access to New York City public high school seniors and other residents. New, which is non-traditional employment for women, does the same for women, provides training and preparation and placement into union apprenticeships. Helmets to Hard Hats, which is a direct entry program for active duty veterans, National Guard, and reservists in training to access careers with the New York City building trades. And Pathways to Apprenticeship, which is a direct entry pre-apprenticeship program for people from low-income communities, justice involved individuals for placement in apprenticeship programs in New York City and Westchester. And C-Skills actually has the highest retention rate and success rate. So it is a sort of a great example of how pre-apprenticeship programs can prepare New Yorkers for lifetime careers in union trades. And then these apprenticeship programs, just wanted to highlight, I think a lot of the times when we think electrical upgrades and solar installation, we think electricians, which would be IBEW, but carbon-free and healthy schools with the retrofit work that would go into it, it would employ thousands of workers across a number of trades. So it wouldn't just be electricians, it would be painters, it would be steam fitters, it would be sheet metal workers, it would be a whole slew of different trades that would, laborers that would get involved. So it truly would be a diverse workforce in every sense of the word. So that I don't want to take up any more time giving too much information and bogging down everybody. But I would love to open the floor to questions. And I see that Council Member Gennaro has his hand raised.
Let me just acknowledge, yes, we've been joined by my good friend, the new chairman of the Environmental Protection Committee of the City Council, Jim Gennaro. I want to welcome him. Good to see you, Jim.
Thank you, Mr. Borough President. I wanted to be on tonight. I had to rush home from a medical appointment in order to be here. And I just wanted to, add my voice to the chorus of people who are, praising the carbon-free and healthy school campaign. I have a relationship with this good organization. All of the labor leaders that Mr. Borough President, are supportive of this effort, and as some may know, some may not know, I'm not only chair of the Committee on Environmental Protection, but the Plan YC effort of many years ago. So young people may not remember it, but that has been resurrected by the Adams administration, and both Speaker Adams and myself serve on the reboot of Plan YC, and one of my a big focus of mine serving on that is going to try to make sure that the good vision of this great campaign is implemented. I'm happy that everyone, all of the leaders of the borough, and you yourself, Mr. Borough President, are taking an interest in this campaign. just a side note, with regard to clean schools, Mr. Borough President, we are moving your number 4 oil bill. So that is getting moved very soon. So that is happening. There are maybe 200 schools that are burning, number 4 oil at 1,500 to 1,500 parts per million of sulfur. And so I was happy to pick up that bill and move it forward. And certainly is in the spirit of what this campaign is all about, of trying to create healthy schools. And it's a great collaboration, between the organizers of the campaign and labor and the kids and people who need good green jobs. And so I couldn't let this evening go by without giving my strongest endorsement to this campaign.
Thank you, and that's big news for that bill to move. As we talk about climate change once again, we got to eliminate the usage of these dirty fuels that really do increase what we're seeing across Queens. Everything is tied together one way or another. So I want to congratulate you on moving that bill, keeping
and of course, and I'm sure many people know that once upon a time the borough president was chair of the Committee on Environmental Protection, and a darn good one if I do say so myself, having served in that capacity for a long time, going way back. So thank you, Mr. Borough President, for your ongoing commitment to the environment. When you're on the council and now, and just having this campaign as part of the borough board and opening up to everyone in the borough really speaks to what you're all about in terms of making the schools clean and healthy and making good green jobs happen. So thank you, Mr. Borough President. Thank you.
And board, we're going to open it up for questions. We'll go to Councilmember Palladino. Welcome. Happy New Year, madam.
Happy New Year to you. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good.
Good. I wanted to just say hello to everybody. Happy New Year. Very busy day at City Hall today with the 12/1/26 for the retirees. So I just came home from that. It's been a great day, very positive all the way around. I want to add to something. What made my hand go up was when we were talking about clean schools. Borough President, we must get after School Construction Authority. You want to talk about clean schools? Let's talk about schools and the construction that has not been completed at one particular school of mine. PS 31 has been fully funded since 2017. School Construction Authority has the work being done by subcontractors. And it's a mess. It is, to say it's walls, bleeding water, leaky roof, not able to use. I think they could finally use one of the boys' bathrooms. It's a disaster, an absolute mess. This principal who's been there is wonderful. She's there for 18 years. And her school has literally been under wraps now since 2017. I also have another school here, PS 79, and they too, no movement. It's been years. They can't use the outside of the school building at all. And the inside, certain areas are an absolute mess. So if we're going to talk about schools and clean schools, I need your help. We need to get on School Construction Authority.
Well, I meet with school. We just had we do a monthly meeting with them in New York. We'll take this down, and maybe for the next one, we don't normally invite folks, but we sort of go through the landscape of the borough. So I'll make sure that that's included in our next SCA meeting. So it's good to know this, so we could follow up. And then what I'll also add, even though you're giving some pertinent issues to these schools, is in all new school construction, it should just be automatic that we have solar panels. Like, we shouldn't even have to have these conversations around new school construction. So I don't know, Tori, how is that going with SCA? And then I know you threw out costs. Were those costs associated, or did SCA do assessments, or were these your assessments?
No, this is what has already.
No, I'm not talking to you. We're gonna. No, you're good. We're gonna follow up on your items, so we can do that.
You and I will talk privately.
Yeah. We'll talk privately and we'll follow up on it. And if I need to come do some walkthroughs, we can do that with Brian.
Oh, would that be wonderful? Thank you so much.
All right, no
Thank
problem. But Tori, to her point as well, even as some of these schools are fully funded, are they putting in solar panels or is that part of it? I mean, it should be a requirement, quite frankly.
For new construction?
For new construction, yeah.
Well, I know that the mayor, recently announced it was the Leading the Charge program. As far as we could tell, without knowing more behind the scenes specifics of it, it was mostly focused on like boiler conversion, and new school construction would be entirely electric, but there was no mention of solar panels. Now there is a solar panel program in process, but unfortunately it seems to be going at a snail's pace in terms of installation. And additionally, one thing that we are advocating for that I didn't touch on is the direct investment into solar panel installation, which the city does not currently do. And that would allow the Department of Education and the city to take advantage of the cost savings of the solar panels, which currently is not the model that it operates under. So we are calling for the acceleration of the pace of it, but also the direct investment.
Let me ask you, the cost estimates with SCA, were these done with SCA or not?
The cost estimates that we came up with were a combination. We took some information and estimates from SCA's capital plan and applied it. I can share more detailed methodology written up from our policy researchers, but they also took industry estimates based on using union labor as well. But we can share that methodology.
And then how involved is FDNY? So I know FDNY there's always challenges around, and that a lot of solar projects have moved at a snail pace, partly to also FDNY sometimes. And this reminds me, Mr. Chairman Gennaro, Chair Gennaro, I passed a bill before I left the council that created something called the Office of Alternative Energy. And that office was to be tasked with, it passed, the mayor signed it, didn't fund it before he left, the prior mayor, but it passed. And that office was put there to sort of streamline the process between the agencies or for homeowners who want to put solar on in the specific city agency, the relevant city agencies who would have to probably do assessments on these roofs and with the SCA in conjunction with them as well. So it's something just to put out there. Hopefully Mayor Adams, I think we might have had one discussion on it, but that office should be funded so that they can do some of this work in advance.
Sure, and if I could, Mr. Borough President, do you know the local number of that law?
I'll have staff follow up with you on it. Tarika,
great.
Tarika, if you can put it in the chat, I'm sure she may have access to it now.
Great, thank you.
No problem. All righty, we'll go to Jean, I saw first, and then Heather.
Thank you, Borough President, and Happy New Year. I'll just give 3 or 4 statements, and then Tori, if you could just answer them. I'm a little perplexed when I saw your presentation. I hope the board chairs or the boards are going to get it and the elected officials are going to get it, because there was a lot of stuff in there. It talks about PS 183. You talked about $688,917 in electrical upgrade. I'd like to know what school needs a heavy duty electrical upgrade like that. I mean, what are we putting them? Yeah.
Jean, I'll answer that question for her.
Go ahead.
When we purchase, so we I'm a big funder of schools. And I will tell you that there are a lot of schools who, even when we buy the equipment, they have to have electrical upgrades because the circuit can't even hold.
I got you. I got you, Mr. BP. Right, I got you. I have no problem. Then the electrical upgrade should be to say that whoever designed the buildings in 1961 should have been looking ahead. I have a house that was born in 1939, and I still have electricity, and I didn't do a major upgrade for $688,917. I can tell you that. And I have computers, and I have light fixtures, I have Echo and I have Alexa. So I have all the new stuff and my house hasn't crashed yet, but it seems a lot of the schools are. So that's one of the questions I have. The second one, when I saw the Thai bill that they have in here, is how many roofs? It was $91 million in roofs that we're replacing. Now, again, being in the fire department, we worry about roof construction and stuff like that. Most of the roofs in the schools are all flat roofs, which are done with tar and flashing to prevent the roof from leaking. So I don't understand how it got so bad that we have to replace $91 million worth of roof. And these are just questions I have with the school and how they're operating the budget. And the last thing I was looking for is the annual solar revenue. They're talking about $2.9 million they were going to get back in 4 years or something. If I read it correctly, if that's the answer. Everybody that I spoke to that put solar panel roofs in doesn't get a return for quite a number of years. So I'm really leery about the numbers that the school department is throwing at this board, and that's what I worry about. Not saying it's not practical. I just very leery when I see numbers like that. The only thing that's missing from this whole plan is MTA's name attached, but because they're another one like a black hole that has an unlimited budget on the city of New York and wants everybody else to pay, but they don't fix their problems. Just those are the questions I have. Whether she wants to answer them or not, those are my concerns I have as chair on the board on this board. Thank you.
Thank you, Tori.
Well, I mean, as I said earlier, our cost estimates were done using some city data and projections, as well as our own industry standard numbers. Now, if the I can't speak to the numbers that the city itself is putting out there, but I would assume that they've done due diligence in those projections. As I said, we will share our methodology for all of our calculations as well. And it's a little bit more detailed. It's too many equations to get into right now. But I did want to just note that Nishanta is back on. So if we have a chance for her to finish what she was saying, that would be great.
Sure. All right, you can take the floor.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for welcoming me back. I had a few technical difficulties, but I was saying that I'm happy to be a part of this coalition and on this call as a lifelong Queens resident and a representative of my organization, CSA, which represents school principals, APs, education administrators across the city. But we know that schools are really at the center of our communities. And we saw that during the COVID-19 pandemic when schools shut down. And when those schools shut down, there were a lot of talks about how do we welcome our students back? A lot of talk about school infrastructure and welcoming them back to an environment that is conducive to learning, one that is safe and one that really aids in their overall health and well-being. And so we can talk about the poor ventilation systems and the crumbling infrastructure, but carbon-free healthy schools initiative is really a solution to that problem. It's one of those solutions, and because it's so representative of the times that we're living in, when we're combating climate change and wanting to lead the charge on climate justice. This is really the time and the moment to get it right and to do what's right. This initiative is environmentally sound, it reduces costs, and it's just a great way to do right by our school communities, our communities at large, by providing good green jobs and the environment. And, like our borough president likes to say, Queens is really the gateway to the world with our 2 airports. And I think what better way to expand our outreach than by helping to lead the charge on climate justice and doing something great for our schools and being that example. So really happy to be a part of this and to continue to push for what's right for our students, for our schools and our communities and environment at large. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're going to go to Heather now for questions.
Good evening. Happy New Year, everyone. And thank you all so much for the presentation tonight. I really appreciate it. Solar has always been a priority for Community Board 6 with our schools, so we're very glad to see this in motion. My concern goes to the timeline for this type of project, how many years we're estimating when we would estimate start to completion, because I am increasingly concerned as to Councilmember Palladino's point. We have an agency that is already behind. They were behind before COVID on a variety of projects. Since COVID, that of course has delayed other capital projects. And now they also have the class size mandate that is coming up as well, that within 5 years, we have to meet that mandate. And part of meeting that mandate is going to be some investment in capital that's going to require additional work from the SCA. So as much as I am very, very excited about the about this program, I am just wondering about the capacity for SCA to both catch up, keep up, and also meet the mandates that are coming down the line in 5 years, along with this very necessary project. So that's my question tonight and concern.
I don't want to speak for the SCA. I will in their defense say that they, I don't want to talk about some of the issues that Vicky raised, but we find them to be one of the most efficient and effective agencies when it comes to giving capital money. I will tell you right now, if we order smart boards right now, they're given to the schools and not tomorrow, but in a decent timeline. But I don't want to speak for them on this, because obviously the question I would have for Tori is like, are they doing assessments in advance, especially in advance of local law? What was our law, Councilmember Gennaro, 80 by 50? So, there are benchmarks that have to be met in the long term. That bill was carried by
yeah. Right, local law 97 you're referring to?
97,
Right,
I was blanking on the number, right. So, so there's just a lot of work that has to be done. That was why I raised the question around, like, is FDNY doing some of this work in advance, and is SCA working with DCAS in advance of some of this as well?
Yeah, this, it is a concern sort of, citywide, obviously, but I will say that certainly within our coalition, the SCA has probably one of the better reputations for agencies that they've dealt with. And beyond that, part of what we are working on currently with Mayor Adams and his administration is essentially coming up with a list of the correct internal stakeholders that we need to get all together to make sure that this is being operationalized in the most efficient and effective way possible. So, certainly one of the reasons why we are coming to you to present this is A, information sharing, B, to hopefully garner some support from folks, but also to make the partnerships on the ground, and also, hopefully capitalize on your experience and these concerns and questions and flags that, we need to go into meetings with the mayor and the city council, having these flags raised so that it is a problem that can have a solution before it actually becomes a problem.
And can you just go back to the total cost for Queens? I think you had a total cost guesstimate.
Yes, let me pull that up real quick.
And then I like the point you make, because that was going to be a question I raised. Federal, definitely through President Biden's infrastructure bill, definitely some opportunities there. And then also, not that we know what our pockets would look like, but also working with stakeholders from the state and the city. How are you envisioning that? So for instance, we fund hydroponic labs. I've funded a green roof at PS 43 in the Rockaways, like in my prior capacity in the council. So we're really thinking, big, and there may be some natural synergy, not to say that I know what my wallet is going to look like, to also work with local elected officials to come up with some pots of money as well. But of course, I want the mayor to pay for everything.
That would be the easiest, right? So the total cost for the 20 schools in Queens was 43.4 million.
Oh, that's not bad.
Yeah. And that's for the solar installation and all of the retrofits that would be needed.
Okay, that's not bad at all. Okay.
Yes, and the Inflation Reduction Act was a wonderful surprise to just about everybody, particularly this direct payment clause in it. Because it provides us with a significant windfall of funding that previously wasn't there when we launched this campaign on Earth Day of 2021. What year are we in? 21. And it can, in certain neighborhoods, depending on where the school is located, it could potentially, for solar installation, help fund 50% of the project, which is pretty significant.
That's
and
a reimbursement from the Fed, right? So they would have to.
So you have to finance it with a bridge loan, and then you would apply with the IRS for the reimbursement. And then, we are seeing with the Environmental Bond Act passage, there's some funding for public building retrofits. I think there's a lot of discussion around that and seeing how that can be applied to schools as well. And also, the governor's, I think she called it Green Healthy Schools. She gave 59 million to that last year, and we're obviously hoping that that trend continues and more funding gets put there. And then also, any I guess creative funding that we can discuss with elected officials and stakeholders is out there.
Great. All right, I'm going to go back to, I want to go to Reverend Thorpe, then I'm going to come back to you, Councilmember Gennaro, and then we'll go to Betty. Unmute yourself, Madam Chair.
Oh, yeah, okay. I'm back on. I'm good.
I'm going to go to Reverend Thorpe first.
Oh, sure. Okay.
Back to you, and then you're next after her, and then we'll go to Betty.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, BP, for this meeting, and Happy New Year to everyone. I just have a question. Out of the 20 schools, were any of them in districts 27, 28, or 29?
Off the top of my head, I don't know. I would have to look through a couple of our spreadsheets.
I think I saw PS 183 is definitely in 27. I think I saw one other school, but we should, if you can share that list, that would be good.
Yes, I will share after the meeting in a follow-up email. We will share the entire list, and also I have it matched up with the council districts and all of community boards and all of those districts as well.
So let me just ask this one other question. So going forward, how is SCA in preparation for the solar and the changing of the grids and the electricity in the schools? How are they working with you? Is there a meeting of the minds? Or are they on the same trajectory?
We have had a couple of meetings with the SCA, and there seems to be a willingness to want to implement this initiative. We have not yet gotten to the part of the process where we're actually, discussing like step-by-step operation strategy. We are hoping that meeting will be happening very soon, because we have had a couple of very positive meetings and interactions with the mayor, and he has directed his staff to bring the right folks together to discuss how to operationalize it.
I think the question was asked before, is there a start date to this project?
Not yet. We haven't gotten a firm commitment or budget allocation from the mayor, so that is still in the works. But we are feeling positive, and we have been having good discussions and good interactions.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Gennaro, Chair Gennaro, and then to Chair Bratton.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Borough President. I just, the bond act was mentioned, and of course, the Inflation Reduction Act is on everyone's mind. I just want to let people know that the bond act money certainly all flows through Albany, and we very rarely get our fair share. The last environmental bond act in 1996, the city did not get its fair share. Some of the Inflation Reduction Act money, which should be due to the city, which should come to the city, has to go to the state, has to go through the state. And my point is that when it comes to buckets of money that come from the feds, or even just state monies, New York City doesn't always get its fair share. Just as a very quick example, there was $220 million of state money for water projects throughout the state, and the state made a determination that no city in the state could get more than 10% of that funding, and then they changed it to no city could get more than 5% of that money, and New York City ended up getting 2%. So out of $220 million, what do we get? So 1%, we got like nothing. So this is, I think, going to have to be an ongoing matter for folks like you, Mr. Borough President, and myself, and the mayor, and others, to make sure that when it comes to federal monies that go through the state or from the state itself, like in the Bond Act, that we get our fair share. I passed a resolution on this right after the Bond Act passed, just to send up a flare that New York City fully expected to get its fair share of Bond Act money, being that we have the environmental justice communities, and so this is going to be an ongoing thing. Make sure that we get our fair share, and we're happy to have an advocate like you, Mr. Borough President, who will do everything you can to make sure that that happens.
Of course, and we have two leaders in Washington now, Senator Schumer and obviously Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, who is no stranger to Queens. Matter of fact, Betty and I were out with him last year, I think sometime it feels like, out in Howard Beach. So he's no stranger to the borough and a good friend and colleague. So we're going to do everything we can to extract as much for Queens from the feds. I will say Senator Schumer's done a good job, but we got a lot more we need. Chair Bratton.
Thank you, Borough President. Happy New Year, everybody. And you're quite correct. If we don't have the leverage now to see some federal money, we'll never have it. My question really is, and I support this program completely, what type of a ballpark figure have you got for doing every school in the city? And what kind of a time frame would that be?
So the
I'm not holding you to exactly, general.
Yes. So, well, because I had the breakdown for the so for solar installation, it would be 3.3 billion, and for the retrofits, it would be 5.15 billion. So
city.
Just about 9 billion. And just to underscore, that does not include the battery installation, which it is a significant part of the cost, but is also something that can be done after the fact. So it's
let me also add just on cost, because we talk about cost, right? But the cost of climate change every time we get a flood is going to kill us much more astronomically than 43, whatever this is, 43, 44 million, right? So I always like to say that we're going to pay for it if we don't do something about it. So the city would be smart to put this investment in up front, because we're all looking at the damage still in Hamilton B. I just had a conversation with the mayor Saturday on the damage in Howard Beach, the damage in the Rockaways. We're going to continue to see this, Hamilton Beach. We're going to continue to see this all over the borough. This is not just a Rockaway thing anymore. Every major storm, we're going to start to see this happen. And then on top of it, with the heat season coming up, when the summer comes up, we know the heat island effect is here, right? So we know we're going to see as many 90-degree days as Atlanta, which was unheard of in the past, right? We're going to have these hot summers. I think we've all been enjoying this warm weather somewhat, but we're going to pay for it at the end of the day. So these investments have to be made to ensure that future generations, unfortunately, we may not reap all the spoils and benefits of all of this, but at least we're giving, you know, infrastructure. I like to say it's a down payment on future generations, right? So either we pay for it now, or we're gonna end up paying for it anyway, and our children are gonna be paying for this as well. So I definitely agree with Tori, like everyone on this line, saying we need to move aggressively because it's not getting better. And storm sewers can only do so much, you know, with the amount of rain we're getting. These storm sewers, I know people say, well, clean out the catch basin. With some of the amount of rain we're getting and how quickly it's coming down, there's no storm sewer that will ever be able to hold that, right? So it's really about trying to do things that we can, in our power, to slow this thing down as much as possible. We have to address it aggressively. Queens is at the forefront of it, as we know.
The right direction, you know,
Yeah.
and I do that not just as a community board person. I'll take off that hat and throw on my retired UFT hat.
right.
5 years in a school student in a classroom with no heat.
Yep.
When they stuck a pile of computers in my room where there was only one plug.
Right, and I was saying these blackouts are going to be more frequent, right? I mean, that was the point, right? Like these blackouts are going to be more frequent. We see what's happening with Con Ed. You know, PSEG did a better job, but that is just holding on by the thread technically at this moment this year, this summer. You know, so we have to get ahead of it.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I will just touch on the timeline question. You know, we are calling for this for all of the schools to be done by 2030, which seems like a very short timeline, especially as, you know, we just entered 2023. However, you know, going off of that sense of urgency, you know, if we keep pushing the date, you know, to make it realistic or, you know, fit sort of like the pace of government a little bit better, it's just never going to get done. It's going to be a can that keeps getting kicked down the road until all of the sudden, you know, Battery Park is underwater and we don't know what to do. And then it's, you know, an additional billions upon billions of dollars to fix everything and everybody, and there are people displaced. So we are calling for 2030. It also is in line with many of the state, federal, and city targets as well, that date.
See Heather's hand again. Heather, you good?
Actually, I think she addressed my question. Just to clarify, by 2030, the goal is to have all schools or the schools that you have highlighted and selected at this point?
The schools we highlighted, that 100 schools, was our recommendation for the initial step. So the first 100. 2030 would be for all schools.
Okay.
So the first 100 we are.
Go ahead. Sorry.
would be like the first, you know, the first year of implementation those are the schools that we recommended to be prioritized.
And those would be done probably prior to 2030 if the goal is. So were you thinking 5 years possibly to complete start to finish for those first few? Because 7 years to 2030. Yeah. I'm just trying to think about time frame.
I mean, it all, for each individual school, it all kind of depends on the amount of work that needs to be done. If it's a school that like has relatively few infrastructure upgrades and is solar ready, that school could be done pretty quickly, you know, within a matter of a couple of years. But something that needs a little bit more extensive of work would obviously take a little bit longer.
Perfect. Thank you so very much. Appreciate the clarification.
Any other questions, comments, or concerns?
Mr. President, I have one.
Yes.
Hi, Gene Carroll. I work with Tori, who's our director. And just to build on something from our director's presentation, in summary, this is consciously a very ambitious plan. And it's a big lift. The complications of getting something like this done are huge in anywhere, and we know that in New York City. But we need the fierce backing of community boards, city council members, borough presidents. We are speaking to community boards and borough boards in the other boroughs. This is the first borough board. We'd like some help with making a presentation to community boards 8 and 14 in Queens, which are where the initial schools that Tori outlined are based in Queens. We want to have that sort of grassroots discussion for them. And, you know, a key thing is we are going to be putting forth a recommendation to the mayor and the city council on a budget allocation figure. You know, with the federal money that Tori talked about and the investment strategy, it's based on this idea that large investments have large results. And we have to drive this forward given the nature of the threat in front of us. But behind it is our strategy, which is we feel like going and using the schools as the entry point into having a huge program in New York City is exactly the strategy to build deep community support, because it's going to benefit the schools, the students, the future, the community, the learning outcomes by improving these buildings. It has a win-win positive investments make a difference kind of aspect to it at the core. So we have a resolution that we want to bring to the borough president's office. We'd like to have the borough board examine it and pass it or make amendments to it. We'll send that to you in a day or two. It's a template, but it's a similar resolution we're going to be trying to get passed around the city. So again, your fierce ongoing engagement with us on this question is what's needed, because all your voices, without them, of course, isn't going to go anywhere. And again, thank you for allowing us this opportunity.
Well, we got the chair is from Queens. I mean, that in itself is big.
Right. Yeah, Jim Gennaro's been a great help on this, no question about it.
Yeah. So so we're gonna get this done. And are y'all trying to tie these allocations to this fiscal year's budget, to the mayor's fiscal year budget this year?
For like the initial set of schools, we are trying to tie this to the upcoming fiscal year budget. Obviously, the greater plan would require a multi-year capital inclusion in the multi-year capital plan and budget as well. And I just also want to, following up on what Jean said about your support, just underscore something that I touched on earlier, which is, not just looking for your support and passing it up, but, looking for your partnership on the ground in terms of implementation, but also workforce development, making sure that we're, doing recruiting and advertising for pre-apprenticeships and apprenticeships in the right communities, and partnering with organizations to do that, to make sure that, the economic benefits of this are going to the right areas as well.
Yep. Very important piece of this is the jobs piece. These are the jobs of the future. Whether we know it or not, they're here and they're coming.
Yes, and just to touch on the local law 97 part of it, that in private buildings is going to be a huge demand on the workforce, and we view this initiative as a way to get training off the ground and get folks involved in the trades and get them trained with the right skills to be able to work on those big private buildings or go to the offshore wind sector.
Let me add to that. I passed the green roofs bill in the city council. So every developer in the city of New York developing any building 25,000 square feet and up or more now is mandated to put a solar roof on, a green roof, a wind turbine. So when the developers come to the board chairs and they say, "Oh, we're putting," so they're not doing it because they want to do it. They're doing it. They don't have a choice but to do it. But this really is going to continue to increase the demand on these new jobs. So building out this workforce is important, especially as we speak about also getting these schools done, the apprenticeship opportunities. So really trying to get our communities ready across the borough, all 14 ready for this green economy explosion that it's bound to come based on what we're seeing happening at the federal level as well. So thank you. So does that conclude your presentation? So I think the ask I heard was for us to pass a resolution.
Yes.
Waiting for the ask. Okay.
Yes.
Got it.
that is the major ask. Yes.
Okay.
There will be
All right.
smaller
So-
follow-up asks, I'm sure, but.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you all for attending tonight. If there are no other questions, comments, or concerns, this concludes our meeting, and I want to thank Tori and everyone a part of the Carbon Free and Healthy School campaign for this great presentation today. I also want to thank my QBPO staff for putting this all together, especially Khalil and Maricela, the Director of Community Boards. Thank you. I want to remind everyone that our community board applications are now live on our website. And we encourage everyone to spread the word, of course, about community boards, the application process. And if for your specific members, please make sure Maricela has a deadline that everybody has their stuff in, because I don't want folks coming to us later on upset that they're not reappointed. We have a deadline. That's what we stick to. So it's not really hard. Everybody can fill out online now. If you need to do snail mail, you can do it, but you can do it online now. So I really want to urge folks to make sure whoever's up for reappointment does that. And with that being said, our next board meeting will be held on Monday, February 6th at 5:30 p.m. I want to thank you all. Wish you all once again a happy new year. It's going to be a big year for Queens. I'm just telling you. If y'all didn't know, get ready. Get ready. It's going to be a big year for Queens. With that being said, thank you all for coming.
Thank you, Mr. Borough President.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.